It's been a busy 12 months for Hyundai SUVs. In late 2017, we had a brand new compact SUV called the Kona. In mid-2018, we then had an update for the mid-size Tucson. And now it's the turn of the company's biggest SUV, the Santa Fe. And this fourth generation model is well timed too, because there's a stack of fresh opposition in the 7-seater SUV space. You could argue that the stance of this $54,000 mid-range Elite variant would be enhanced by wheels that are bigger than these 18-inch alloys. Yet the slightly larger new Santa Fe otherwise makes quite the impression with what we reckon is a fairly handsome design. That front end is quite bold too, notably the cascade effect grille and the squinting LED headlights. Oh wait, no, they're the daytime running lights. These are the actual headlamps. If the Santa Fe's exterior isn't striking enough for you, you might be surprised by the interior. Okay, so there's plenty of grainy hard black plastic that's been around for too long in Hyundais, so you're not going to confuse this cabin for a BMW X5 or Mercedes-Benz GLE, but there is a genuine upmarket ambience here. There are a couple of nods to British luxury cars, with a stylish wraparound dash that reminds one of the inside of Jaguar's XJ limo, and the Bentley-esque quilting on parts of the upholstery. Then how about these very cool rippled door speakers, the soft-touch dash and door sections finished in a mature caramel hue, or the distinctive cloth material used for the pillars, visors and roof lining. Of course, all that means nothing if this 7-seater SUV doesn't deliver on practicality. Well, let's start with the third row, because that's obviously something that distinguishes the Santa Fe from other Hyundai SUVs. And oh, that's pretty clever. One-touch release to get into the back row. Okay, so let's clamber into the back, pull the seat back. Okay, so if the passengers ahead of you don't mind using the sliding second row bench to compromise their legroom a little bit, it's actually better than a 5+2 layout back here. Leg space probably comparable to that of a 6.8 or a 6.9, and we also get some fan controlled air conditioning over here. That's really good. Headroom though, well, that's really cramped. I'm 5'8", and look at that, touching the roof lining. So realistically, this third row is for kids rather than adults. It's worth noting though that there are no top tether anchor points on these rear seats, so it is really for older kids rather than small kids in child seats. Boot space is big with those rearmost seats folded, though small with them in place. For extra convenience though, there's an electrically operated seatback folding system, plus a tailgate that you can open automatically after 3 seconds if you approach it from behind with the key fob in your pocket. There's now some extra space in the second row too, so ample room for knees and heads, even for taller passengers, as demonstrated by a 6-foot-something cameraman, Glenn. Also a flat floor and 2 USB ports to keep smartphones charged on longer trips. This is a good point at which to mention some of the Santa Fe's new tech. Now, stay where you are, Glenn, because there's an alert system that if I turn the engine off, go to open the door, check rear seats. This rear occupant alert system monitors pressure or movement in the second row seats, and if I ignore them and lock the car with Glenn still in there, in theory the car will sound its horn. Beautiful day. Oh, crikey. Okay, well that works. But do people really forget that their kids or their grandparents are in the back seat? Apparently they do. And to help prevent Glenn or other occupants opening the door into the path of an oncoming vehicle, the Santa Fe will provide a visual and audible alert. Unfortunately, some great tech that allows you to charge your smartphone wirelessly or use an app to change cabin temp or lock your car is available only on the $60,000 flagship Highlander. Which makes this variant's Elite badge slightly ironic, because such exclusivity is, well, a bit elitist. Still, if sales reflect those of the previous model, about half of Santa Fe buyers will opt for the more expensive Highlander. There's also plenty of active safety technology across the range. Every Santa Fe comes standard with autonomous emergency braking, got blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert with auto brake function, lane keep assist, drowsiness alert, and this Elite model and the Highlander come with front sensors as well as rear sensors and adaptive cruise control. Now, I almost literally just jumped out of a Tucson Elite before driving the Santa Fe, so that makes for a pretty convenient back-to-back comparison. And again, Hyundai Australia's local engineering team have done a really good job tuning this car for local road conditions. Not quite as perfect as the Tucson, because I'd say that the suspension doesn't quite smooth out bumps as well as the mid-sized SUV, and the steering isn't quite as smooth and wonderfully linear as the Tucson steering. I've also been tempted to turn off the lane keep assist system, because even if you're perfectly centered between lane markings above 60 kilometers an hour where the system's operating, it always feels like the car is trying to fight against your inputs on the steering, and it's really quite annoying. So, off. That's being hypercritical because the Santa Fe generally steers very nicely, provided you've switched off lane keep assist, and it's amply comfortable around town, while the suspension's compliance is particularly noteworthy on country roads. Performance is also boosted by the presence of a carryover 2.2 litre turbo diesel in both this Elite model and the Highlander, which you'd much rather have over the 2.4 litre petrol standard in the $43,000 entry-level Active. The 2.4 petrol is lacking for torque, but here we've got 440 Newton meters and kicking in quite a bit earlier at 1750 RPM. So with just a little squeeze on the throttle, that's really nice punchy mid-range. Also more economical, 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres officially, though that is a little bit more than the 6 litres per 100 kilometres you get in, say, the Mazda CX-8 diesel and the Tiguan Allspace 140 TDI. That TDI engine in the Volkswagen is also Euro 6 emissions compliant, where this is still only Euro 5. All Santa Fe's are all-wheel drive currently, and you can influence how much torque is going to the front or rear axle with this drive mode system. So if we go into Eco, now the Santa Fe is predominantly a front-wheel drive vehicle for better economy. Press it again and go into Sport, get a bit more response from the engine, and you've got more torque going to the rear axle, up to about 50%. Now, I don't really like Eco because the throttle response is a bit doughy, and if you're in Sport, the engine sounds a bit noisier and the auto a bit busier. The sweet spot for the Santa Fe is most definitely comfort mode, because you've still got sufficient response, and the engine's nice and quiet, and the new 8-speed auto is at its smooth shifting best. In terms of actual size, the new Santa Fe is only slightly larger than the previous model, yet in terms of driving manners, safety, connectivity and cabin ambience, this is a much bigger step forward for Hyundai's big SUV.